Payday 2 is considered one of the best heist games ever made and has maintained an incredibly loyal player base for more than a decade. Payday 3, the sequel, should have been an instant success, but instead ended up becoming one of the worst reviewed games in Steam's history. What went wrong, and why are the developers so desperate to turn things around? Well, as always, to tell this story, we need to start at the very beginning. The studio responsible for Payday is older than you might think. In 1997, Ulf and Bo Anderson founded a game company called Grin. The brothers wanted to release a series of PC and arcade games, many of which were loved by gamers and critics alike. But Grin's brief era of success was abruptly cut short in the early 2000s. Square Enix had commissioned the studio to create a spin-off game for Final Fantasy, but after half a year of work, they pulled the plug on the project. Losing any chance of being paid for the project that they had poured months into was a killing blow to Grin and led to the Anderson brothers closing down the studio in August of 2009. Despite the failure, the brothers had no intention of quitting. They knew they had more fresh ideas to bring to the world of gaming. And the same year that Grin shut down, the Andersons founded a brand new studio called Overkill. Immediately, they began brainstorming their next big project. Losing their old studio was rough, but it also gave them another opportunity to re-establish themselves in the industry. So, for the first big game under the new studio, they wanted to focus on making something that they'd actually want to play. And they were big fans of games with replayability, and they loved heist movies like Heat and Die Hard. So, combining both of these ideas gave birth to the company's first major project called Payday the Heist. Payday the Heist was released in 2011 and was a pretty big success. Critics noted that the game was a bit clunky and unpolished, but the core gameplay loop was dynamic and fun, and it was something extremely interesting. It developed a cult-like following and garnered quite a bit of attention, selling over 700,000 units by October of 2012. The devs had struck gold, and many were calling Payday the best heist game around. But despite the success, Overkill was facing financial difficulties. A pattern throughout the story of Payday is that regardless of the success that the game brought the studio, the company remained one bad day away from bankruptcy. The Anderson brothers and their team wanted to take advantage of the audience that they had built with Payday the Heist to make a sequel, but without more money, that would be impossible. For a moment, it seemed like they were going to lose yet another promising studio to bankruptcy. At around the same time, a different studio by the name of Starbreeze was also struggling financially. Starbreeze had partnered with EA to make a reboot of the Syndicate series. However, the development cycle for this game had been a nightmare. EA and Starbreeze had severe creative differences that led to breakdowns in communication, and the game being sent back to be reworked multiple times. Things became so dire, in fact, that in the middle of development, multiple key members of the dev team left Starbreeze to form a new studio, and many followed them. Syndicate finally released in 2012 to a lukewarm reception, leaving Starbreeze on the brink of financial bankruptcy with only a small team of developers left. The situation was desperate. The company needed a miracle to happen if it was to survive. Enter Overkill. The Anderson brothers reached out to Starbreeze with a plan that could hopefully save both companies. If they could just get enough funding to finish Payday 2, they were confident it would bring in enough revenue to keep both of them afloat. Starbreeze didn't exactly have a lot of options, so they agreed, and the Payday team was granted the funds to complete their sequel. Now, both companies would be under the Starbreeze umbrella, and the future of both studios now hinged on one game. And this new game had to be outstanding if the studio had any hope at surviving. Maybe they could have gained some inspiration from the sponsor of today's video, War Thunder. I love War Thunder because it's the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made by a long shot. In War Thunder, you can take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, ranging from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. These vehicles have the coolest damage models I've ever seen in gaming, with individual components like your fuel tank, crew, and vehicle weapons being able to take damage from enemy fire, and this really keeps you on your toes. Whether you want fast-paced matches in arcade mode, hardcore and intense games in simulation mode, or a middle ground of these two playstyles in the realistic mode, you can play War Thunder and fight against 70 million other players in large-scale PvP battles however you'd like. So check out War Thunder today for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox by using my link in the description. And if you're a new or returning player that hasn't played in 6 months, you can sign up today using my link to get a free bonus pack. This pack includes an exclusive Eagle of Valor decorator, 100,000 silver lions, and a free premium account, but it's only available for a limited time. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to our story where the fate of Starbreeze hinged on one game. Fortunately for Starbreeze, their gamble paid off big time. Payday 2 became an immediately beloved classic. It took everything people liked about the first game and made it bigger and better. There were more missions, multiple ways to complete them, a robust progression system, and most importantly, fun and dynamic cooperative gameplay. Payday 2 was the perfect way to spend a Friday night with a group of friends. And the game only became better with time as the devs released a steady flow of DLC and fresh content. People have been playing Payday 2 for years, and it's not hard to see why. The game was unique, fast-paced, and highly replayable. And for a long time, there was truly nothing like it. Unsurprisingly, Payday 2 raked in cash. Practically overnight, Starbreeze went from nearly destitute to swimming in money. You'd think that this would be a moment of celebration. After years of hardship, the Anderson brothers had finally made it. Their game was so great that it managed to save 2 companies and make them superstars in the industry. Yet, behind closed doors, things couldn't be worse. The Anderson brothers had led the Payday franchise to new heights, but it had come at the cost of their relationship. Ulf was burnt out after the game's launch and wanted to focus on a smaller project while he recovered. By contrast, Bo's ambition only grew once he saw the success that they were having with Payday 2. He wanted to seize the moment to go bigger than ever before and bring Starbreeze and Overkill to new heights. But unfortunately, they weren't able to resolve their differing perspectives, and Ulf eventually stopped coming to the studio entirely. Bo would soon buy out his brother's share of the company and would continue his plans with or without him. But you see, Bo had always focused on the business side of Payday, and Ulf was actually the creative chief of the game. He was a big part of making Payday what it was, and now that they had parted ways, things were going to change for the worse relatively quickly. Those who worked with Bo praised him for his ambition and charisma. However, they had less positive things to say about his overall leadership skills. He was way too focused on money, overly optimistic, and idealistic. These tendencies led him to make a series of baffling decisions on Starbreeze's next direction. Against the wishes of others in the company, he funded Lion Game Lion and their Raid World War II project. This game was basically a World War II knockoff of Payday 2, and the devs were confused why the company spent money on a competitor's game rather than improving their own title. Some speculate that the main reason money was spent on this game was because Bo was friends with the management of Lion Game Lion, but this was just the tip of the iceberg. He also led the charge to spend tens of millions of dollars investing in VR, and this spending spree included the strange decision to drop $10 million on a VR theme park in Dubai. While these things were minor on the surface, they raised a red flag about the direction that the company was taking and the future of Payday. But ironically, the most devastating financial decision was actually one of Bo's cheaper purchases. He bought the Valhalla game engine for $6 million, and the plan was for this new engine to power all of Starbreeze's future games. At first glance, this seems like the only purchase designed to actually help the company, but in reality, it was a death sentence. Valhalla was completely unusable. It didn't have any of the tools or support features of a well-designed engine, and it was incredibly unstable. It was borderline unsuitable for game development on nearly every single level. The next big game that the team was focusing on was the infamous Overkill's The Walking Dead. However, because the dev team was stuck using a busted engine, the development process for this game became a living nightmare. I mean, this situation could be an entire video in and of itself, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. Anyways, progress on The Walking Dead was so slow that the devs were ordered to restart entirely after 2 years on a new engine that most of the team was unfamiliar with. Technical issues aside, the project also suffered from horrible management. Bo's poor leadership and overly ambitious style had trickled down to the rest of the management team. Staff dealt with unreasonable demands, sudden orders for dramatic changes, poor communication, and an overall lack of cohesive vision. It became increasingly clear that there was a reason why Ulf had controlled the creative direction before he left. The chaotic and disorganized production cycle led to the development of an incredibly lackluster game. In 2018, Starbreeze released their Walking Dead game, and it became the biggest flop in the company's history, and the failure would cause them to begin to feel the weight of Bo's reckless spending. Overall, the company dropped $28.1 million on VR-related initiatives, none of which turned a profit. The expensive game engine they purchased ended up becoming a disaster, and now their only major game since Payday 2 had bombed. Starbreeze was in a worse position than it had ever been in. It's undeniable that a lot of the biggest issues stemmed from decisions that Bo made, and because of this, he stepped down as CEO. Now, both of the brothers who had originally led the development of Payday and Payday 2 were gone. Bo's resignation was a wake-up call for the studio. Starbreeze had essentially been spinning its wheels since Payday 2, and it seemed like the company's best days were long behind it. Something needed to be done now. What they needed was Payday 3. During the struggles that Starbreeze had throughout this period, Payday 2 had remained immensely popular and was their only saving grace. But after half a decade, fans were desperate for any news of a sequel. Could Starbreeze deliver? Well, it was a stretch from the start. The company had lost key figures instrumental in the development of the last Payday game, had new management, a poor track record, and debt due to the Walking Dead failure. It was unclear if Starbreeze had the money, skills, or vision to make Payday 3 the sequel it needed to be. And yet, they had to try if the company were to survive. Once again, everything hinged on their biggest franchise saving them one more time. In December of 2022, Starbreeze released a trailer for the long-awaited sequel to Payday 2. It received almost universal praise. The preview made the game look slick and exciting. The long wait, combined with the increase in technological power of modern titles, meant that fans were expecting Payday to be better than ever before. The average gamer had no idea how chaotic Starbreeze was behind the scenes, so they had no reason to worry. However, as more details about the game came out, the optimism quickly started to fade. In July of 2023, Starbreeze confirmed that, unlike the past games, Payday 3 would require players to be always online and required an internet connection even when playing solo. Fans almost universally hated this change from the start. Always online play meant that players with weaker or unstable internet connections would be excluded, and it meant that gameplay would be reliant on stable servers. If there were any issues with the central server, or worse, a deliberate attack, all players who owned the game wouldn't be able to play. People didn't really like the idea of paying full price for a game when factors out of their control can completely prevent them from using the product that they bought in the first place. Overall, this was a disappointing announcement, but fans still had hope. Payday 3 took another hit when it was confirmed that the game would have microtransactions. Back in 2015, the developers got in pretty hot water when they attempted to add loot boxes into Payday 2. The community reception was so bad that they not only removed them, but apologized, admitting that they'd broken the trust of their fans. But with this announcement, it seemed as if Starbreeze stepped back on their word and went back to valuing money over their players. In the lead up to the launch, there were definitely concerns, but for the most part, people were still excited. The problem though was that they had no idea how bad things were about to get. Payday 3 was released on September 18th, 2023. Its launch was a complete disaster. People had criticized fans for overreacting about the game being always online, but in the end, the fans were proven completely right. The server was so buggy that the game was basically unplayable. Issues with the matchmaking were causing people to wait up to 45 minutes just to queue into a match. Even more baffling is that these extended wait times were happening even to people who were just trying to play solo. Beyond the connection issues, the game was packed full of bugs, many of them game-breaking. The AI for police officers often didn't notice players directly in front of them, people sometimes got stuck in infinite loading screens when they restarted a heist, and players and NPCs constantly clipped through the map. Within a few days, Payday 3 had mostly negative reviews on Steam and was easily the most hated game in the franchise. It didn't take long for some of the biggest issues, like the broken matchmaking, to be fixed, but it didn't matter. First impressions are extremely important for games, and Payday 3's first impression was of a rushed, unfinished mess. Many players quickly dropped the game entirely, and those who were considering buying it moved on. For many people, this is the end of the story. Payday 3 was a buggy mess that was actively insulting. But that begs the question, beyond the glitches, was the game good? Well, not really. The core gameplay loop of Payday 3 was okay. When compared to Payday 2, the player movement was definitely smoother and more dynamic, the gunplay felt a little more solid and sturdy, and the new heists themselves were innovative and grand. In fact, these heists were arguably some of the best in the series. Payday 3 also made solid improvements to the stealth mode by making it less difficult to try stealth options at lower levels and adding more branches in the paths of each route. Now players could truly feel like they were able to cleverly break into complex facilities without being detected. But this was basically all that Payday 3 had going for it. The rest of the game felt lazy, stripped of features, uninspired, bland, and taped together. Rather than animated cutscenes, the story of Payday 3 is delivered in what are essentially dull PowerPoint presentations that aren't even voice acted. The AI is brain dead and often breaks for no reason, the UI and menus are clunky and lifeless, the progression system is incredibly grindy and irritating, the armor system is terrible, and most frustratingly of all, there are so many missing features when compared to Payday 2. Yes, the heists are good, but even 1 year after launch, there are only 8 of of them. For comparison, Payday 2 launched with 12 heists. Payday 3 also only has 19 guns, none of them new. Within basically a week, you can play through all of the content in the game to this day. People often point to the bugs as the reason why the player count drops so fast, but I think this was the real issue. Even if the bugs are fixed, or if people are able to stomach them, there just wasn't enough to keep those players interested. And it just felt watered down when compared to the previous title that everyone loved so much. The lobby system for the old game was mostly phased out for just generic matchmaking. You queue for a game, and then you start. In Payday 2, you went to lobbies and actually talked and interacted with people. This game gave players the ability to plan and discuss how they were going to handle a heist. By contrast, Payday 3 seems to go out of its way to make communication between players next to impossible. It doesn't matter if the game improves the stealth mode if it removes the ability for players to actually do the planning required to take advantage of it. CrimeNet was the main way of allowing players to get into matches with each other in Payday 2, and they didn't even mention it in the third game. This system allowed you to see the job and difficulty of a given lobby and join ones that fit your preferences. Now, with this new matchmaking, you just had to hop in and hope for the best. Overall, the core of the game was decent, but there's too little content and too many issues holding Payday 3 back. It was competing with its own prequel, and Payday 2 was winning. In fact, there are over 10 times more people playing Payday 2 today than the new game, and Payday 3 peaked at more than 69,000 players on Steam, while Payday 2 peaked at nearly 250,000. The new game just doesn't do it, and it feels like an insult to what Payday 2 had built. Payday 2 is simply the superior game. In fact, my friend Austin and I just revisited it for the first time in years, and I made a video about that experience over on my second channel. It's really entertaining, so consider checking it out by visiting the link in the description. But here's the thing, Payday 2 also had a rough start and owes a lot of its current reputation to a plethora of updates, expansions, and DLCs. So that begs the question, is it too late for Payday 3 to turn things around? The core gameplay is good, so that means there might be something worth saving here. It'll be difficult for Starbreeze to shake off the game's horrible first impressions, but it's not impossible. It's becoming more and more common for games that originally flop to make a comeback once things improve. Just look at Cyberpunk 2077, and of course, No Man's Sky. Starbreeze is certainly trying to fix things. The studio has acknowledged the feedback and disappointment of fans and seems like they want to make things right. A month after the game launched, they dropped a patch that promised to bring over 200 bug fixes and quality of life improvements. However, they realized that the problems with the game were deeper than just some glitches. In February of 2024, Starbreeze publicly released a detailed plan to overhaul the game. Some highlights included implementing a true solo mode that doesn't require an online connection, rolling out a new free heist and 3 new DLCs, revamping the UI, and remodeling the progression system. On June 27, 2024, 9 months after the disastrous launch, Payday 3 received the first real big update. This free update came with new weapons, more cosmetics, a brand new heist, and a new solo mode that, as we said before, didn't require the use of matchmaking. Many players are excited and hopeful for what the future may bring, but some are more critical. Some guns and 1 new heist don't come close to tackling the deeper issues of the game. Fans desperate to believe in this series are overlooking that not much has changed. There's also the question of if Starbreeze should be allowed to come back from this. They made the decision to release a broken game, and now want to win brownie points by doing what they should have done from the very beginning. Can we still trust them to fix this game and turn it into something great? We're gonna have to wait and see. Did you play a lot of Payday 2 back in the day? How do you feel like it compares to Payday 3? Are you as disappointed as I am, or am I blowing this whole thing out of proportion? What was your experience with Payday 3 at launch? Let me know your answers to all these questions in the comments below, and make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this video and want to see more discussions on failed and dead video games, as well as occasional game reviews. And don't forget to check out War Thunder by using my link in the description for a free bonus pack and to support the channel. Thank you for watching, I will see you guys next time, and peace.